Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So in this video, I'm going to be reading some of the highest rated romance books on my TBR. I realized that 3 of the romance books I had on my, I forget what month it is, May, on my May TBR were all extremely highly rated on Goodreads. They all have over a 4-star average rating, which in the Goodreads world is pretty good. So the 3 books that I will be reading are Beach Read by Emily Henry. This has a 4.31, which is pretty good considering the book isn't even out yet. It comes out towards the middle of the month and it already has about 8,000 reviews. So I'm pretty sure that average rating is gonna be accurate, even though it's not actually out yet. The next one is Radiance by Grace Draven. This has a 4.10 and almost 30,000 ratings. And then the last one is going to be Violent Delights by Jessica Hawkins. This has a 4.19 and 3,000 ratings. So I'm excited to read all of these and see where I fall, if I am with the majority and thinking that they're all great. All 3 of these are books that I've heard amazing things about. Friends of mine, people that I follow have rated them 5 stars. I have high hopes for all of them. I think I'm going to enjoy all of them, but I'm curious to see if I think that these Goodreads ratings are accurate. So today I'm going to start Radiance by Grace Draven. Based on the response I got in my TBR video, you guys are really excited for me to read this book. I'm very excited to read this book. I've heard nothing but amazing things. This is a fantasy romance about an arranged marriage between 2 different people. They are completely different species and they're trying to unite their kingdoms. And they're both kind of like spare royals. He is the youngest prince, so he's not like in line to be king. And she is the niece of the king. So they're like spare royalty and they are arranged to marry each other as an alliance between the 2 people. But what's really unique about this book is that unlike most fantasy arranged marriages, they're not enemies. They don't hate each other. They actually become best friends. And I think that they also are not physically attracted to each other. Like, they both think that the other species is the ugliest thing in the world, which should be very interesting to read about. I don't know if I've ever read a romance where the couple actually thought each other was ugly. I read Phoenix Unbound by Grace Draven, so I'm just excited to read more of her books, and I think that this is one of her more popular ones, so that is what I'm going to be reading today. Okay, I'm only on chapter 2, but I had to show you guys this because it made me laugh so much. So Ildiko, the female human character, she says, "You find me ugly, don't you?" And Brishan, the male character, he says, "Hideous, a hag of a woman." And then he asks her, "You don't think me a handsome man?" And then she says, "Had you crawled out from under my bed when I was a child, I would have bludgeoned you to death with my father's mace." And then they both laugh about it. Like, oh my god, can we just stand friends to lovers who think each other are ugly? Okay. So I'm about halfway through and so far not much has happened in terms of the plot, but I'm not mad at that because the really like strong suit of this book is the characters and the relationship between them, and this is definitely the type of fantasy story that I enjoy. I've mentioned this a lot. I love journey stories, like when characters are traveling, and for a couple chapters they are traveling from her kingdom to go live in his kingdom, and I just love that. Any type of fantasy book that has some sort of traveling aspect, I love. That is my favorite thing in fantasy. So I really liked that, and then it's just like, I don't know how to describe it. I guess it's like a domestic fantasy book because it's really just about them interacting with each other, doing things with each other, living their married life together, being friends, and getting to know each other. And Ildiko, the female character, she's really like trying to get used to living in this world now where she is living with a completely different species and they have different customs and different traditions and different food. Oh my god, yes, the food. Okay. There was all this talk because when they got married, they were in her kingdom with the humans, and Brishan was talking about the food at their wedding banquet and how disgusting it was and how it was like the grossest thing he's ever eaten in his life. And then he goes on to describe a baked potato and how revolting this baked potato was, and it was just so funny. And then when they go to his kingdom, she has to eat his food, and she's talking about how it's like the most disgusting thing she's ever had ever, and I will agree with her. What he eats is absolutely disgusting. They have this like delicacy that is a pie, but inside the pie is this like living creature, so the pie is like moving, and you have to take a knife and stab it to kill the creature, and the creature inside of it is like this, it almost, the way that they described it was almost like a hybrid of an eel and a sea urchin mixed with a scorpion. It was disgusting, and it was like slimy, and they had to eat it. No, but it's just so funny how like that is considered a delicacy to his people, but then a potato is like absolutely disgusting to them. And this book is just full of different things like that, and it's really funny to see the things that he finds absolutely creepy about humans. Like, for example, his species, they're called the Kai, and they're basically all gray, and the main difference is the eyes. Their eyes are completely yellow, so like they have no irises or pupils. It's just full yellow. And so to them, human eyes are so creepy because they move. So in order to like freak him out, Ildiko will cross her eyes and he like flips out. This book is so funny and cute and domestic, and like, I don't know, I've just never read a fantasy book like this where it's like, yeah, it's set in a fantasy world, but it's just like happy, you know? I'm sure it'll get more intense like as I'm getting to the second half, when things, I'm assuming things are gonna like, shit's gonna hit the fan. But right now it's just like fun, and they're just like hanging out, having a good time. And you can see that they're like slowly becoming more attracted to each other. Like physically they're not attracted to each other, but they're attracted to each other's personality and like on the inside, and that is making them more physically attracted to each other on the outside. So that's really nice. And they keep having a lot of these moments where like he will kiss her on the forehead, or like kiss her hand, or like touch her back or whatever, and I'm just like, oh my god, freaking kiss her already. I'm just loving it so much. Okay, so I finished Radiance and I ended up giving this 5 stars. I really loved this, and Grace Draven is definitely becoming a new favorite author. I want to read everything by her. I do have the sequel to this book, but when I bought it, I thought that this was a duology. I thought it was just 2 books, but apparently there's a 3rd book that's coming out either later this year or next year. I don't know if I want to read the 2nd book or wait until the 3rd book comes out. You guys need to let me know if you've read it. Does it end on a cliffhanger? Do you recommend reading it now? Or should I wait until the 3rd book comes out? But yeah, this book was so good. The second half was definitely more intense than the first half. I just love this romance so much. It was so cute and pure, and like I mentioned that I love romances where you take the physical attraction aspect out of it and the characters become attracted to each other's personalities and like how they are on the inside. So like I really love romances that start out as like pen pals where they don't know who each other are, or romances where, like for Smutathon, I read a romance that took place in the dark, so they never saw each other. I really liked that. And then now this one, they don't find each other physically attractive, but over the course of the book, after getting to know each other, they start to be more physically attracted to each other because they love who the person is on the inside. And it just made it feel like their romance was more intense, you know, because I read so many romances where it is purely based off of physical attraction, and like, yeah, that's nice and all, but then there's nothing deeper than that or nothing beyond that. This was just like so deep, and like I just loved it. I loved it. I've never read a fantasy friends to lovers or an arranged marriage friends to lovers, and it was so good. You guys know I love my enemies to lovers, but friends to lovers, like this just hit different. 5 stars. You guys were right. Every single person in my comments that said, oh my god, you're gonna love Radiance, you were right. It is the weekend now. What I'm currently reading right now is Violent Delights by Jessica Hawkins. This is a dark romance that surrounds the cartel. At the very beginning of the book, in the prologue, the main character is like 9 years old, and she walks into her mother's room to find that her mom has been murdered. And there's a guy in the room who is Quisciano, and he is basically the older brother of these 2 siblings who were her father's like rival cartel. They were their sons, and when her father murdered the two boys' parents, he kind of like took in the sons. And so when she goes into the room and finds her mom dead, the older guy is the one that's there. And so all signs point to him being the one that killed the mom. And so he uses her to try to escape, and he ends up leaving her locked in like this tunnel for a really long time, like covered in her mother's blood, and it's very traumatic for her. So then it flashes forward like 11 years later, and she is now in a relationship with the younger brother, who is still a part of her family. The older brother has fled and no one has seen or heard from him in 11 years. But I think that the romance is between her and the older brother, even though right now she's currently with the younger brother. I don't know, but it's really good so far. I've only read the prologue, but so far I'm really enjoying it. So I just finished Violent Delights and I really enjoyed this. It definitely gave me everything that I wanted. At the beginning of the book, there is a masquerade, or it's a costume party masquerade ball, which is like one of my favorite things. And she is not supposed to go there, but she ends up going, and because she's in disguise so nobody knows that it's her. And she shows up and this mysterious man starts dancing with her and being very like intimidating, but also like kind of sexy and like saying all this stuff to her. And then later she finds out that that man is Cristiano, the guy who killed her mom, and her father has forgiven him and basically believes that he didn't do it, so he's accepting him back into the family. But she doesn't believe that. She still thinks that he's guilty, and she doesn't trust his intentions. She doesn't trust why he's back. And so the whole book is kind of like a struggle with her, the two brothers, who to believe, what is going on, what's true, what's not, who's really betraying who. I definitely think if you like the In the Company of Killers series, which is one of my favorites, you'll also like this. It has a lot of similar elements to it, and it was definitely a sexy book. I will say my one critique is that it literally, like the book ends right in the middle of the climax. So the entire book is like building up to this scene, and then right as the scene happens, the book ends. And I'm like, okay, where are the rest of the pages? Because I know you did not just end it right there. So that was the only thing that kind of annoyed me. But other than that, I loved it. I'm giving it 4 stars. I don't feel like I could give it 5 stars just because the ending rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know. I don't like when books, I guess I just don't love when books end in the middle of something. Like a cliffhanger is one thing, but literally ending in the middle of a scene, that kind of annoys me. But other than that, yeah, I really loved it. I can definitely see why it is highly rated, and I'm excited to read the other 2 books in this trilogy. Now I'm going to read Beach Read, which out of these 3 is the most highly rated, and I'm excited. I've heard nothing but amazing things about this book. All my friends love it. Everyone's giving it 5 stars. Like if I scroll through Goodreads, literally everyone has been giving it 5 stars. It's interesting because this is the type of book that based on the cover, I probably wouldn't have been that interested in if I hadn't seen so many good reviews for it. And a part of me is like, I want to be like the one person to be like, this book sucks, okay? So I'm trying to go into it with like modest expectations, but we'll see. So I just finished Beach Read, but quickly before we talk about that, I want to take a brief moment to talk about the sponsor for today's video, Skillshare. So by this point, you should all know Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives where millions come together to take the next step in their creative journey. Skillshare offers classes that include a combination of video lessons and class projects, with classes to fit your schedule and skill level. Members get unlimited access to thousands of inspiring classes with hands-on projects and feedback from a community of millions. Spontaneous acts of creativity may help break up the routine of a day spent indoors. And on Skillshare, you can explore workshops, classes, and more. And it is less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. There are classes on so many different topics, including animation, creative writing, film and video, fine art, graphic design, and even productivity. With this class, Simply Productive, How to Accomplish More with Less, you can learn how to make the most out of your day and hold yourself accountable to be productive for the long term. And the first 1,000 people to click the link in my description will get a free 2-month trial to the premium membership of Skillshare. All right, so like I said, I finished Beach Read. I pretty much stayed up all last night reading it until like 3 a.m. And you guys, I really wish I could sit here and say like oh my god, the hype isn't real. Don't listen to the hype. But I loved this book so much. So much more than I thought I was going to. I guess going into it, I didn't fully know what it was about. I only knew like the basic premise, which I don't even think I've told you guys. So Beach Read is about these two writers who both write very different things. The woman, she writes adult romance, and the guy, he writes like literary fiction. And they are neighbors for the summer at beach houses, and they're both kind of in ruts with their writing. So they come up with this bet where they're going to trade. She is going to try to write like this literary fiction with a tragic ending, and he is going to try to write a rom-com with a happily ever after. And the first one who sells their manuscript first wins. So that was like the basic premise that I knew going into it. What I didn't know was the heavier topics that were going to be dealt with in this book. A big portion of the book surrounds grief and loss of a loved one. That was a really big aspect. And so the book kind of was like flowing back and forth in between like lighter rom-com moments and then really heavy, serious family drama, not drama, family issues. And I think for an unskilled writer, that could have been very jarring, you know, to keep flipping back and forth, but Emily Henry did a really great way, I think, of balancing the two tones of the book and making it seem like a seamless transition in between different scenes. And I had very similar feeling to this book as I did The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. I think that they have a lot of overlap in terms of the tone and just the way that things happen. Both of them are like heavily rooted in like family tragedy and grief and confronting, you know, things that you've buried, and then they're kind of undercut with this kind of like rivals romance. So they have a lot of similarities, and if you don't know, The Simple Wild is one of my favorite books of all time. So I really loved this. I loved the romance. Basically, January and Gus knew each other in college. They were in the same writing classes, and they were like kind of rivals in college, or from her point of view, they were rivals. He was her rival. He always critiqued her stories, and he was like the top of the class. When her first book or one of her books came out and she was on the New York Times bestseller list, he was also on the list, but higher up. He's just always been like kind of her rival, and now they're neighbors. And as part of their bet, basically they go on little excursions. So on Fridays it's research day, so that's his day to take her to do what he does when he's writing, which is to go research things, and he's currently researching a cult. So they go to interview people from the cult, and they all have like really dark, depressing stories. And then her day, Saturday, is where she takes him to do cute like rom-com things and things that you would find in rom-coms. So like one day they go to a drive-in movie, and another day they go to a carnival. I just loved this. I'm just like, I totally understand now why this book hasn't even come out and it's already like everyone's talking about it, everyone's loving it. I understand. It was so great, and it's been a really long time since I have messed up my sleep schedule for a book. It takes a special book for me to want to do that, and I was totally fine staying up until 3-4 a.m. to read this book. So to do a little wrap-up summary of the 3 books that I read, 2 of them I gave 5 stars, Radiance and Beach Read, and then Violent Delights I gave 4 stars. So all 3 of these books were ones that I really enjoyed. The Goodreads rating system, although very flawed, I will admit, it did me a solid on this one. All of these books turned out to be ones that I really love. So this was a fun little vlog to do. Definitely let me know if you would like me to do more where I read some highly rated books and see what I think of them. And if you've read any of these 3 books, definitely comment down below and let me know what you thought of them. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! And Brishan, the male character, he says, "Hideous, a hag of a woman."